It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
I agree. I was given some very valuable advice 30 years ago, and that advice was you should always pay off your home before you go investing in shares or doing any other sort of investing, because once you have your principal place of residence secured, then that gives you that feeling of confidence to then be able to take risks elsewhere.
And that is Carmen in Brisbane on the Real Estate Breakfast this morning as we launch into another episode with more of your property information, connecting you to the largest real estate podcast library right across Australia. And we are doing this every morning, 7 days a week, streaming right now on Amazon and Spotify. Gotta be feeling good. Another Friday has turned up. Friday, June the 6th today. And this week has gone by super fast for us. And it never ceases to amaze me how many people look to cheat the system, especially when real estate can be involved. Where there is a creative mind lurking, anything is possible when it comes to money and lining your pockets in ways that are illegal. An example, you might have heard about this. Westpac's former mortgage arm, Rams, is facing legal action from ASIC over alleged systemic misconduct in its home loan operations. Now, let me tell you the story here. The corporate regulator claims that Rams failed to supervise franchise staff, leading to fake pay slips, false contracts of sale, and altered customer expenses to push through questionable loans, commonly dubbed liar loans. And ASIC says that this unlicensed and unlawful conduct spanned from 2019 to 2023, breaching national credit laws and exposing serious oversight failures within the organisation. So that is something that is going to be coming up in a court case, and we'll be right across that. Now let's take you into Brisbane and catch up with Carmen Briggs from Harcourts in the Gap there. And a very good morning and welcome into the Real Estate Breakfast, Carmen.
Good morning, Craig.
Nice to have you on. And the Gap is Brisbane's largest suburb. I didn't realise that.
We are the largest suburb. We are around 10 kilometres from the inner city of Brisbane in the Western Corridor, and our suburb begins where Ashgrove ends, and then we go as far up as to the border of Mount Nebo. So it is a beautiful area and beautiful green spaces.
Now, you would have seen things really change over a period of time because you've been there 2 decades, 20 years in the Gap. How much have you seen change in that time?
Oh, Craig, it's been dramatic. I was only saying the other day, I can remember sitting in my office 20 years ago, talking to buyers on the phone, explaining that we had substantial homes for $200,000 with very large blocks and lots of amenities. And then I can hear myself over the years increasing that. And now we're up to a very basic home being sold over $1 million here in the Gap. So it has changed a lot.
Different time, isn't it? Different era, 20 years ago. No social media, no phones, no mobiles. Well, they probably were around just. But yes, the way in which you conducted real estate, horses for courses.
Yes, I agree. It has changed dramatically with the technology that underlies all of the way that we can expose properties to buyers. But I think the fundamentals are still very important. I really love meeting with the buyers and the sellers and having face-to-face conversations and showing them homes. So the technology is certainly there, but it doesn't replace that human contact.
Yeah, human contact is code for authenticity. And because you come from real estate 20 years ago, you're a different animal completely to somebody that's getting involved in real estate now. They're used to the social media. That's why we see a different style emerging. But you're right on the money. It's all about that human contact face to face and being as authentic as you can.
Oh, I agree. And one of the things that's interesting at the moment is some of the younger buyers, when they're wanting to submit an offer on a home, they will just send an email or a text message. I find that really interesting because I encourage them to pick up the phone so we can actually talk about their expectations and their needs and just talking through the whole process. And I always joke around and say, why don't we use the old-fashioned way and why don't we just chat on the phone about your interest this afternoon instead of sending me an email? And it's a really lovely start to the relationship.
They're not interested in that. Of course, you are old school like me. Yeah, let's have a conversation. But the amount of times that people go to the email or the text or they say, jump on WhatsApp, people say that to me. I go, no, just give me a call on the phone, thanks.
I think it's really important, Craig, because when you think about it, you can be contacted via WhatsApp or Messenger or an email or a text message. And there's so many different ways that an offer could be submitted by a buyer. And you would be terribly disappointed if the agent that you were submitting that to missed your offer and you missed out on buying a dream home. I always think for such a big purchase, and it is a very big purchase in everyone's lives, is that personal contact is just paramount.
I just want to come back to the gap here for a moment because it has changed over the years. One of the things you were telling me off air is that you always used to have local people buying local, but now you've got them coming from interstate, and that probably is testament to just how big the gap has got in both land mass size, I guess, and reputation.
It is interesting because it has changed a lot. The reason why we are such an attractive suburb is we have a very, very good state high school here in the Gap. It has a fantastic music program and it is advanced in a lot of its learnings. We are a very safe suburb. We have very little crime. We have a local police station, so the police are part of the community. And so I guess the best way to frame it is we're just a really kind community. It's a lovely place to live.
We are talking to Carmen in the Gap there in Brisbane. We'll come back and talk more about this location after this.
Every morning from 6 a.m, we bring you the latest real estate news with diverse perspectives from leading industry experts. We deliver the most property podcasts across Australia every week.
Hey, Jenny in Newcastle, thank you so much for your email. You have only just found us 2 weeks ago, you said, when searching for real estate podcasts. Got to say, that is the great thing about Discovery. Even though we've been around for over 4 years, people are finding us all the time. And if that is you, be sure to let your friends and family know about us, especially those that have got a keen interest in real estate. Now, Jenny, you said that you could relate to one of our podcasts about older women in their 50s coming out of a divorce. This was something that we talked about a few weeks ago. You said that for years and years, you told your husband to pay down the mortgage so that you'd be mortgage-free earlier. The husband, with all of his wisdom, said, no, I don't want to do that. As a result, you divorced and you haven't got as much money coming out of that divorce settlement as what you would have liked, which has to be said is so short-sighted by your ex-partner, your ex-husband. You say that you're going to be going into a small one-bedroom unit. Do let us know with regard to that and how you get on.
We are more than just a real estate podcast. We cover a multitude of subjects, including property data, current buyer-seller sentiment, and the mood of the market. Follow each week all of the main talking points and know your property.
Let's go back to Carmen in the Gap. And Carmen, that is a really interesting email there from Jenny, because I think a lot of women can relate to that. They've probably said to their husbands, their partners, let's get this mortgage paid off as soon as possible. And there's some resistance to it, which is a little bit weird.
I agree. I mean, I was given some very valuable advice 30 years ago. And that advice was you should always pay off your home before you go investing in shares or doing any other sort of investing. Because once you have your principal place of residence secured, then that gives you that feeling of confidence to then be able to take risks elsewhere. I think that issue that Jenny's experiencing is quite familiar for a lot of ladies because they may have been rearing children and been out of the workforce, so therefore their super as well has been affected. And now that they're in their 50s and moving towards their 60s, financially that does impact their next steps. I think some of the ways to work through that is to always look at, if you've got a partner that's not prepared to pay off the mortgage, is to have maybe a little separate offset account where you can be depositing money that does also contribute to reducing the mortgage. So at the end of the day, you still have your little bank account, but you've also contributed to reducing the debt.
That's a good one. I wonder if that sort of holds up legally. If you were to talk to there'll be women that are listening right now that are in these marriages that have said the same thing. Look, let's get our mortgage paid off. I wonder if they talk to their solicitor and say, is there a way that if I'm paying more of the mortgage off, that can show in terms of a divorce? I guess that's possible if you've got it written in writing.
Yes, it is very complex, Craig. I agree. If when you do purchase a home with a husband or a wife or a partner, having that financial common goal is just so important. And every extra $50 you can put on your mortgage is certainly going to reduce the overall spend and the time that you're holding that mortgage, which will benefit either party, whether they're separated or together, long term.
Yeah, so Jenny, she might have got married 20, 25 years ago. I mean, love is so divine, isn't it? When you first get married, you're not looking at all of these things like how you would be affected in your 50s. And you'd know women in their 50s that have gone through a divorce and come out the other side quite poor in terms of trying to re-establish their situation.
Yes, I have. And it is very heart-wrenching and certainly overwhelming when they have to leave maybe a larger home and downsize into a one-bedroom unit. So yes, it is a real issue and it is very, very complex. I think one of the most important things is to surround yourself with people who are going to support you and be your advocate. And you can always create a home with love and care around a smaller home, but it certainly is very emotionally draining.
Yes, because I think mental health is probably at play here. If you've got yourself a decent large home and you come out with such a small amount of money, maybe in some cases, you're only getting a studio, that can sort of make you feel not the greatest.
Oh, I agree. Very, very difficult journey. It is difficult to condense your life down to a smaller home. But I think what we all need to remember is the home is not the actual structure. The home is what goes on inside and the love and the care that the family provides. So yes, it is a big transition.
So Carmen, great to catch up and find out a little bit about the Gap, largest suburb of Brisbane, and go well in 2025. And thanks for coming on to the Real Estate Breakfast this morning.
That's my pleasure, Craig.
Whether you're a seasoned investor or a first-time buyer, know your property with us on the Real Estate Podcast.
What you were saying earlier, Craig, is that external conditions that have still got people a little bit watchful and a little bit cautious, but definitely better. Yes, definitely better. I think we're down to around about 3.5%, which we've come from 5.75% OCR, so much better.
Are there people that are in that situation still struggling even though it's come down as many times?
Well, absolutely. And there's a bit of a lag because people have locked in. I mean, no one could afford a floating rate 6 months ago. There's probably very few mortgages that have been able to refix at these lower rates. I mean, from the last 6 months, they're coming down, but I think now you can quite comfortably get 4.89% for a year, 4.69% for 18 months. So that's pretty good, isn't it, historically?
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.